Welcome to my channel. Don't forget to subscribe and enjoy my new stories every day. Hello everyone. Let me take you back to a time when my wife Rachel and I were several years into our marriage, living what I thought was marital bliss. But as time passed, I began to sense a subtle yet undeniable shift in our relationship. After our wedding, we had moved in together in Boston, and for a long while, our love life felt like a beautifully choreographed dance, sensual, harmonious, and deeply fulfilling. Then, without warning, things changed. It was as if the wind had shifted. Rachel began turning down my advances, and no matter how I tried to rekindle our closeness, she always seemed to have an excuse: work exhaustion, or even the allure of her favorite TV shows. Gradually, everything seemed to take precedence over the intimacy we once shared so effortlessly. Her ongoing avoidance started to take its toll on me. Each rejection chipped away at my confidence, little by little. But I loved her far too much to let it destroy what we had built together. After months of rejection, I decided to try a different approach, a quiet act of defiance, if not a social experiment. I stopped trying to initiate intimacy altogether. I told myself I would wait for her to make the first move. Part of me was frustrated, but another part was genuinely curious. What would happen if the roles were reversed? The results were almost immediate. The woman who had been consistently dodging my touch suddenly became the one seeking it. At first, her attempts were cautious, testing the waters. But as time went on, her advances became more assertive, more passionate, just like they used to be. And each time she approached me, I declined, watching as confusion crept into her expression, followed by irritation and, finally, anger. One evening, as my experiment continued, Rachel caught me off guard. We were sitting on the couch in comfortable silence, watching our favorite sitcom. She was nestled against me, her head resting on my shoulder. Then, without warning, she turned to face me, her eyes sparkling with a mischievous glint I hadn't seen in ages. "Marcus," she murmured, her fingers tracing a delicate path across my chest. "It's been a while, hasn't it?" I swallowed hard, my heart racing at her touch, but I reminded myself of my plan and my resolve. "Rachel, I'm really tired tonight," I said, keeping my voice calm and steady despite the turmoil inside me. "Let's just enjoy the show, okay?" Her face shifted instantly. Surprise gave way to confusion, and confusion quickly turned to anger. "Are you rejecting me?" she asked, her voice sharp and cutting. "After all this time, I've tried to get close to you, and now you're turning me down?" Her words hit like a slap. I stared at her, stunned, unsure of how to respond. "Rachel, No," she interrupted, pulling away from me. The distance she created between us felt like a mirror to the growing emotional divide. "You're tired, fine. I get it," she said, her voice bitter. The rest of the evening was spent in intense silence. Her frustration was palpable, and guilt gnawed at me. But I reminded myself that this was part of the process, a necessary step to make her see what I had endured was finally coming to a head. The next time Rachel made a move, I decided to escalate things further. I agreed to her advances, and the spark of anticipation in her eyes was unmistakable. But just as we were about to get intimate, my phone rang. I had staged the call in advance, another piece of my experiment. I feigned urgency, apologized, and quickly left the room, leaving Rachel alone and confused. Later that night, I returned home to find her waiting for me, her emotions simmering just below the surface. "I can't believe you did that, Marcus," she said, her voice trembling with hurt. "You avoided intimacy on purpose. It felt awful. This was the moment I had been waiting for." I seized the opportunity to explain. "And now you know how I felt, Rachel," I said, cutting her off. "All those months when I tried to get close and you pushed me away. Do you have any idea how much it hurt?" Her eyes widened, the realization dawning on her. The shock and guilt on her face told me that my message had finally gotten through. I had never spoken about the hurt I had been carrying, thinking it was something I couldn't do or silently endure. But in that moment, she finally understood exactly what her actions had done to me. "If you keep avoiding our intimacy," I continued, my voice steady, "I won't hesitate to do this again." The words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. I watched as she wrestled with the sudden realization of how deeply she had hurt me. Her gaze shifted to my phone, lying innocently on the coffee table. Without hesitation, she grabbed it, her expression unreadable but charged with emotion. "This," she hissed, her words sharp and biting, "this is what ruined our moment." Before I could react, she hurled the phone against the wall. The sound of it shattering into pieces reverberated through the room, an echo of our crumbling marriage. I stood frozen, my mind racing to process what had just happened. I looked at her, at the wildfire burning in her eyes, and the truth struck me like a blow. This wasn't just about a phone. It wasn't even about our issues with intimacy. It was about a deep, widening chasm between us, one that had been silently growing for a long time. My experiment had only forced it into the open. In that moment, I accepted the harsh reality. Our relationship was beyond saving. I had tried to fix things, to build a bridge back to the love we once shared, but it was clear she wasn't willing to meet me halfway. So I did the only thing left to do. "Rachel," I said, my voice calm despite the chaos swirling inside me, "I think it's time we end this. I'll be contacting my lawyer." The shock on her face told me she hadn't expected this. But deep down, I knew it was the right choice. My so-called revenge experiment had turned into a wake-up call, not just for her, but for me. It made me realize that love, on its own, is never enough. A relationship also needs respect, communication, and understanding, elements that had been sorely missing in our marriage. As I braced myself for the legal and emotional turmoil ahead, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of gratitude. This experience, painful as it was, had shown me what I truly deserve in a relationship and what I had been missing for far too long. It was a first step toward a future where I could find genuine happiness, respect, and love. Some of you might remember my last post about the collapse of my marriage and the pending court proceedings. I figured it was time to update you on what's happened since then. It's been a whirlwind couple of months. I hired a top-notch divorce attorney and filed for divorce, preparing myself for a drawn-out, messy battle. I braced for the worst. After all, divorces are notorious for being emotionally and financially draining. But to my surprise, the process went far more smoothly than I expected. My lawyer was a rock star, helping me build a solid case. She even used Rachel's outburst, specifically the destruction of my phone, as evidence of emotional distress. That detail tipped the scales in my favor. The court ultimately ruled that I didn't owe Rachel any alimony. On top of that, I retained full ownership of our house and car, assets we had purchased together. To say I was relieved would be an understatement. What I feared would be a grueling ordeal turned out to be relatively painless, and I felt a massive weight lift off my shoulders. As for Rachel, she had no choice but to move back in with her parents in Seattle. I heard she had to scramble to book a plane ticket. Honestly, I did feel a twinge of pity for her, but I reminded myself that we were both adults, and this outcome was a result of our choices and actions. A few days after she left, I received a call from her parents. I braced myself for angry words, accusations, or blame, but instead, I was met with an unexpected gesture. They apologized. Yes, you read that right. Rachel's parents apologized to me. They expressed regret for how things had unfolded and admitted they felt their daughter could have handled the situation far better. They also assured me they bore no ill will toward me, a sentiment I gladly returned. It was a conversation I hadn't anticipated, but it brought me a much-needed sense of closure. Now, here I am, single and adjusting to a new chapter in my life. Coming home to an empty house is strange, but I'm learning to find peace in the solitude. There are moments of sadness, even bitterness, but they're becoming less frequent. Slowly but surely, They're being replaced by a sense of freedom and optimism for the future. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that love isn't the only foundation a relationship needs. Respect, communication, and understanding are equally vital. Without them, even the strongest love will crumble. So that's my story. I hope it helps anyone who might be facing similar struggles. If there's one piece of advice I can offer, it's this. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself and demand what you deserve in a relationship. And don't hesitate to walk away if things aren't working. At the end of the day, your happiness and mental health are what matter most. Thank you for watching and listening to my story. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.